Yeah, just like anything.
You had said, and we told you that there was a traffic stop.
Right.
That somebody made some allegations against an officer.
Right.
They don't know the officer's name, none of that. And you said that you made a traffic stop after work, but you didn't call it in.
I didn't call it.
Where was that?
It all started on a quiet night in June 2014 when Officer Daniel Holtzclaw made a traffic stop of a 57-year-old woman, Jannie Liggins. What happened next was a blur of confusion and terror as Officer Holtzclaw ordered Jannie out of her car, made her lift her shirt, and forced her to perform oral sex on him. Now Jannie fled the scene feeling violated and ashamed, but she knew she couldn't stay silent about the incident. So she gathered the courage to file a police report, hoping for justice. But little did Officer Holtzclaw know that his actions would lead to one of the biggest and most controversial cases in recent history. Yes, he was going to spend the rest of his life behind bars, and we're here to discuss just that. Jannie Liggins was a director of a daycare center in Oklahoma City. It was a normal night in 2014 when she was pulled over by then Oklahoma City police officer Daniel Holtzclaw. He told her that she was swerving and asked her to step out of the car. Liggins complied, putting her hands on top of the police car as Holtzclaw began to pat her down. At first, everything seemed routine, but then things took a dark turn. Liggins said that Holtzclaw forced her to expose herself under the guise of searching her for a concealed weapon. She was terrified and didn't know what to do. As an African-American woman, she felt particularly vulnerable, especially since Holtzclaw was half white, half Japanese. She tries to refrain and pleads with Holtzclaw not to hurt her.
He did things to me that I didn't think a police officer would do. He made me perform all sodomy sex on him. I didn't know what to do. I was so afraid. I was afraid for my life. I kept begging him, "Sir, please don't make me do this. Don't make me do this, sir. Please, you're going to shoot me." He said, "I'm not going to shoot you." I said, "Yeah, you're going to shoot me." The only thing I could see was my life flash before my eyes.
She even tried to appeal to his humanity, telling him about her grandchildren and hoping that he would back off. But it didn't work. Holtzclaw continued to violate her, leaving Liggins feeling helpless and violated. Liggins realized that Holtzclaw wasn't like other cops. He had a darkness to him, a twisted desire that he couldn't control. He didn't care that Liggins was older than him or that she wasn't interested in him. He just wanted what he wanted, and he was willing to go to any extent to get it. Liggins tried to fight back, but it was no use. Holtzclaw was too strong, too powerful. He forced her to do things that no woman should ever have to do, all while cars drove by on the street. Liggins was terrified. She thought she was going to die. But Holtzclaw didn't care. He just wanted to satisfy his sick urges and didn't care who got hurt in his way. Liggins was just another victim to him, another woman to be used and discarded by him. When it was over, Holtzclaw didn't even have the decency to apologize. He just zipped up his pants and drove away, leaving Liggins alone and traumatized. However, she knew she couldn't stay silent, so she gathered the courage to file a police report hoping for justice.
And he just picked the wrong lady to stop that night.
Yes.
Okay.
On the following day, Holtzclaw reported to the Oklahoma City Police Department's Spring Lake Division for his shift. However, detectives Kim Davis and Rocky Gregory pulled him aside and drove him to the department's sex crimes unit before questioning him. From the start, things looked bad for Daniel Holtzclaw due to a myriad of things that went wrong, such as not reporting the encounter to dispatch, turning off his GPS, and logging off the computer. Now, Holtzclaw had been with the department for about 3 years. Things were always strange around him. People started to complain about his aggressive behavior. His personnel file showed that he had received at least a dozen excessive force complaints, yet he was never charged with any wrongdoing. On the night of the incident, Holtzclaw made a traffic stop at 2 a.m. while he was off duty and driving home in his patrol car after his shift. But instead of following proper procedure, he shut down the communications and GPS tracking system in his police car, something he admitted to always doing after work. Now, why would he do this? What was he hiding? It was during this traffic stop that he encountered Liggins. We've seen what happened next, but according to Oklahoma City Police Detective Kim Davis, there were many similarities between Holtzclaw's and Liggins' account of that night. Holtzclaw claimed that Liggins was being aggressive and that he had to calm her down by saying that he was not going to shoot her or anything like that. But is that what really happened? As the investigation progressed, it became clear that he was anything but. Detectives asked him to turn over his badge, gun, and uniform, and it was on the trousers of his uniform where they found the evidence that would send shivers down anyone's spine. There was female DNA on the inside of his pants, but it wasn't just any female DNA. It was unknown. It didn't match the officer's girlfriend, nor did it match his known victim, Jannie Liggins. To the detectives, that meant there was possibly another victim out there, another innocent person who had fallen prey to the twisted desires of this monster. As the investigation continued, more and more victims came forward. Women who had been pulled over by this officer, women who had been threatened with jail time if they didn't comply with his demands. As the investigation unfolded, police found out that Holtzclaw had been stopping women on his beat and using the position of power to commit heinous crimes. The records showed that he had encountered thousands of women, and who knows how many of them were victimized by him. Chardarian Hill was one of his victims. She was just minding her own business when Holtzclaw stopped her. Holtzclaw had complete control over her, and she felt helpless. She thought that he probably could hurt her. Carla Raines, another victim, was just walking down the street when Holtzclaw forced her to get in his patrol car. He made her expose herself under the pretense of checking for drugs or weapons, but Holtzclaw wasn't done yet. Sherry Ellis was also walking down the street when he stopped her. He patted her down under the clothes and found out that she had an arrest warrant and multiple unpaid fines. Ellis was terrified. She wondered if she was going to jail as Holtzclaw forced himself on her. Afterward, he drove her to an abandoned schoolyard nearby where he raped her. I mean, it's hard to imagine the horror and trauma these women went through. But despite the mounting evidence against him, Holtzclaw continued to maintain his innocence. When the police arrested him in the parking lot outside of his gym, he knew that his world was about to come down. He was accused of committing sex crimes while on duty, using his position as a police officer to prey on vulnerable women. The victims were women who had criminal histories of drug abuse, prostitution, or outstanding warrants. They were the perfect victim because no one was going to believe them. If you believe them, who cares? A prostitute can't be raped. Yes, they can. Yes, they can.
When he searched me, he searched under my clothes. He patted me down up under my clothes.
Investigators eventually located a 17-year-old girl Holtzclaw had given a ride home, who told police that Holtzclaw then raped her on the front porch of her own house. It was only after her DNA sample was sent to a lab that they found it was a match to that unknown female DNA that was found on the inside fly of Holtzclaw's uniform pants. They finally had some science to throw at the jury. By the time the case went to trial in 2015, prosecutors had filed charges against Holtzclaw for sexually assaulting 13 women, all African American and most of them middle-aged. After a 6-week trial and 4 days of jury deliberations, Holtzclaw was convicted by an all-white jury in December of 2015 on 18 of the 36 counts he faced related to rape, sexual battery, and other charges.
Guilty of the crime of rape in the first degree, and punishment is set at 30 years. Count 33, sexual battery. Defendant is guilty of the crime of sexual battery, and punishment is set at 8 years. Count 34, sexual battery. Defendant is guilty of the crime of sexual battery, and punishment is set at 8 years.
He was sentenced to 236 years in prison. But despite all the evidence against him, he claims there was a vendetta against him. Police Chief William City said that Holtzclaw's crimes are some of the worst abuses of authority he's seen in his 38 years. But Holtzclaw's family believes in him so strongly that his father, Eric, and mother, Kumiko Holtzclaw, say they have emptied their life savings and cashed in their pension to pay for his defense. It's a story that will leave you shaking your head in disbelief. How can someone who was supposed to protect and serve the public turn out to be a predator who used his power to prey on the most vulnerable in society? And what do you have to say about it?